Prime Minister, Mr. Colin Shepherd?
This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today.
Mr. Shepherd?
Madam Speaker, during the course of his busy day, will my right honourable friend reflect upon the fact that over the last year, industrial output in the United Kingdom rose by 3.7%, whilst in Germany, Japan, France and Italy it fell. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that this is but one of a large number of good news stories abounding in this country at this time which deserve a wider currency? Yeah. Will my right honourable friend... Will he confirm, Madam Speaker,
yes, I'm sure
that it is still permissible to publish good news in this country?
Madam Speaker, as far as I could hear my honourable friend over a fairly turbulent House, I believe he was referring to good news in the economy that there's been evident over recent weeks. I think that good news certainly is allowed. I fear it is often perhaps masked by less important matters these days. But the fact is that the British economy is growing, has been growing for some time, is expected to continue to grow, and thankfully unemployment is falling and is expected to continue to fall.
John Smith.
Madam Speaker, is not the cry for a referendum on Europe further and compelling evidence that the Prime Minister's cabinet and party are hopelessly divided? Is it not astonishing? Is it not astonishing that battle is permitted to rage even within the Treasury? Does the Prime Minister support his Chancellor or his Chief Secretary?
Well, I think, as the right honourable gentleman knows, and as I made clear to the House on many occasions in the past, I'm sceptical about referendums. I made that clear during the Maastricht debate, and I haven't changed my mind about that. As far as the Intergovernmental Conference is concerned, there's not even a specific agenda yet. I don't believe the question of a referendum arises now, and it certainly doesn't need to be decided now. It's not yet possible to say what the outcome of the conference will be, and I can assure the right honourable gentleman I do not intend to come back to this House with a package that this House would find unacceptable.
Madam Speaker, on the question of referendums, does the Prime Minister recall telling this House on the 6th of May last year, and I quote his words exactly, "We are a parliamentary democracy and I am not in favour of referendums"? Has the movement... Madam Speaker, today he expressed scepticism. Is the movement from opposition to scepticism because he's running in front of the anti-Europeans?
Right honourable gentleman, if he'd listened very carefully, would also hear me say, I have not changed my mind, as I did a moment or so ago. As far as a single European currency is concerned, as I've indicated before, decisions on that are a long way off. That isn't going to be determined in 1996. No one expects that this Parliament is going to be asked to decide on a single European currency. That would be a matter for a future Parliament, in circumstances no one can predict. And it was my negotiating at Maastricht that made clear that this department would have the right to decide upon that matter at a future date. And even if I wished to, I could not bind a future Parliament on its decisions.
Mr. Smith.
If that answer by the Prime Minister is to be construed as ruling out a referendum in the future, can we be assured that every member of his government will be asked to support it or will be asked to resign?
Well, I just set out the position entirely clearly for the right honourable gentleman. And I made it entirely clear to him it wouldn't be appropriate now to make a commitment now about a future Parliament's decision. Even if I wished to, I couldn't bind a future Parliament. And my personal decision on referendums has been made entirely clearly on other occasions and again today. I reiterate, I have not changed my mind.
Neville Trotter.
Does my right honourable friend agree? Number two.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply I gave some moments ago.
Trotter.
Does my right honourable friend agree that it is a fact that if we were to have a Labour government, we would inevitably have higher taxation? It is a fact that we would have weaker defences, and it is a fact that our policy to Europe will be destroyed by socialism. Is that not a message? Is that not a message that all of us on this side of the House should be constantly conveying?
Well, I'm bound to say that a Labour government is a very improbable premise. A very improbable premise. Even last Thursday, which appears to have buoyed them up, even on that occasion, they secured a lower share of the vote than we secured at the last general election. But my honourable friend is entirely right. It would mean substantial defence cuts, it would mean higher expenditure, higher taxation, and it would mean signing up as part of a federal European state which is no future for this country and will not be accepted by the people of this country at the next general election.
Mr. Paddy Ashdown.
Madam Speaker, does the Prime Minister realise that his answer on the question of a referendum will only serve to confirm his reputation as the maybe man? How can the British people be asked to vote on the question of Europe for a government that is so divided on this issue and a Prime Minister whose answer on the key questions cannot get further than perhaps? Will he now tell us whether his answer is supposed to construe the meaning that he is opposed to a referendum on any circumstances in which there is a substantial change in Britain's relations with Brussels, yes or no?
The right honourable gentleman's at his own game as a veritable opportunist for all seasons. I made it perfectly clear what my personal position was on referendums a few moments ago. I made it clear in 1996 I wasn't going to bring back anything remotely likely to be unacceptable to this House. And I made it clear that at a far future date, as far as a single European currency is concerned, the decision must be made by this House. I cannot bind this House, and I do not intend to try and bind this House at this distance in time.
Sir Terence Higgins.
The case that the Leader of the Opposition was the member of a government which introduced a referendum, an alien concept inconsistent with our system of representative parliamentary democracy. And is it not absurd for those who argue that the authority of this House is being usurped by Brussels to advocate the use of a device which would undermine the authority of this House?
Well, my right honourable friend points to something with which the House has become familiar, and that is the right honourable gentleman's selective memory for what he has stood for in the past. I think the points made by my right honourable friend are undeniable, and I agree with them.
Malcolm Wicks.
Number 3, Madam Speaker.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the reply I gave some moments ago.
Wicks.
Has the Prime Minister been told that since his campaign visit to Croydon, the wise people of Croydon threw out a Tory council after over 100 years and elected a majority Labour council for the first time ever? We thank him for that visit. But who does he blame for the Croydon Tory disaster? The local Conservatives or his own government?
Let me mention to the honourable gentleman, I visited Westminster as well, and I visited Wandsworth. I congratulate the new Croydon councillors on their success in the election. And I sympathise with the Croydon electors who will have higher bills to pay and a less efficient administration.
Mr. Nirj Deva.
Number 4, Madam Speaker.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply I gave some moments ago.
Deva.
Madam Speaker, is my right honourable friend aware that the United Kingdom has attracted the highest level of foreign investment of any country in the OECD in 1991 and 1992? And would the Labour parties propose increases in business taxes
as enunciated in the European Socialist Manifesto and encouragement to that vote of confidence in Britain?
Well, my honourable friend is right. We have built up a position over many years as a very favoured country for inward investment. That's apparent in Scotland, in the North East, the North West, Wales, and many other places as well. There's no doubt that that would fall away if we followed policies advocated by the front bench opposite. A social chapter would inhibit inward investment, a 35-hour week would, a minimum wage would, plans to harmonise taxes upwards would, all of which the Right Honourable Gentleman has signed up to in the Socialist European Manifesto, which is binding upon the Labour Party and which I hope they will make clear to every elector in the forthcoming European elections.
Michael Connarty.
Number 5, Madam Speaker.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the reply I gave some moments ago.
Connarty.
Does the Prime Minister accept that there are hundreds of thousands of pensioners now genuinely concerned that should they fall ill, their pensions and savings will be used to pay for care that they thought they had paid for through their taxes? And will he take on the people in the Treasury, the bloodsuckers in the Treasury and the Social Security Department who are threatening the last vestige of compassion in the National Health Service?
As the honourable gentleman knows, we are increasing resources in the National Health Service and increasing the provision of assistance to people in the National Health Service. Indeed, the National Health Service is the one service in government that is guaranteed a real terms increase year on year as we examine the relative proportions of public expenditure. There is no doubt about the growth, both for the elderly and for other people in the National Health Service, and that growth will continue.
Jim Lester.
Delighted to hear my right honourable friend's wise words on the subject of a referendum. Would my right honourable friend reflect that when the party opposite had a referendum in order to provide party unity, it not only created the Social Democratic Party, but it's kept them 14 years in opposition?
So far, Madam Speaker, there are more years of opposition to come.
Mr. George Moody.
Number 6, Madam Speaker.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the reply I gave some moments ago.
Mudie.
Why, after 2 weeks ago, only 2 weeks ago, expressing support for the aims of the Disabled Bill, did the Prime Minister allow a cynical, government-inspired sabotage of the bill last Friday?
No one could have accepted a bill as drafted with a cost compliance when calculated of 17 billion and a yearly on cost of $1 billion a year. But, Madam Speaker, as my right honourable friend made clear in the debate on Friday, we intend within the next 6 months to consult on proposals to eliminate unjustified discrimination in employment, access to goods and services, financial services and access to buildings, and we also intend to consult on the establishment of a new advisory body on disability. Those consultations will take account of the views of everyone with an interest in disability, and at the end of that process we'll consider assisting in the drafting of practical and workable legislation that will assist the disabled.
Sir Fergus Montgomery.
Is my right honourable friend aware that one of the great problems facing not just this country but the rest of the world is the increase of drugs and the terrible effects that that has on crime? Could he give an assurance that the government and the police will give top priority to tackling the drug barons and their vile trade?
Yes, I can certainly give my honourable friend that assurance. The sum total of expenditure now to tackle the drugs menace exceeds something like £500 million a year. We are seeking, under the chairmanship of my right honourable friend, the Lord President, to bring together all the action that exists across government so that we can target on the drugs programme in the most effective way. We're also concerting with our European partners, notably Germany, to see what can be done at a European level to assist in preventing drugs coming to this country in the first place.
Howarth.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the reply I gave some moments ago.
Sir Howarth.
As the leader of the most unpopular government this century, and with a divided shambles of a party beside and behind him, doesn't the Prime Minister think it would be better to clear the air and have a general election now?
At the last election, we received the highest number of votes that any party has ever received in a general election, and we received a 5-year mandate to carry out our policies. I intend to exercise that 5-year mandate. Then the honourable gentleman will get his election, and then if he personally is re-elected, he can continue to sit where he sits now.
Time's up. In a moment, members desirous of taking their seats will be pleased to come to the table. Is Wicks here?
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, her heirs and successors, according to the law. So help me God.
Thank you very much.
Witness read?
Yes, thank you very much. Now you sign the roll.